वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ श्रीगौराङ्गगुणानुवर्णनविधौ श्रद्धासमृद्ध्यन्वितौ पापोत्तापनिकृन्तनौ तनुभृताम् गोविन्दगानामृतैः आनन्दाम्बुधिवर्धनैकनिपुणौ कैवल्यनिस्तारकौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ त्यक्त्वा तूर्णमशेषमण्डलपति श्रेणीं सदा तुच्छवत् भूत्वा दीनगणेशकौ करुणया कौपीनकण्ठाश्रितौ गोपीभावरसामृताब्धिलहरी कल्लोलमग्नौ मुहुर्वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ कूजत्कोकिलहंससारसगणा कीर्णे मयूराकुले नानारत्ननिबद्धमूलविटप श्रीयुक्तवृन्दावने राधाकृष्णमहर्निशं प्रभजतौ जीवार्थदौ यौ मुदा वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ सङ्ख्यापूर्वकनामगाननटिभिः कालावसानीकृतौ निद्राहारविहारकादिविजितौ चात्यन्तदीनौ च यौ राधाकृष्णगुणस्मृतिर्मधुरिमा नन्देन सम्मोहितौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ राधाकुण्डतटे कलिन्दतनया तीरे च वंशीवटे प्रेमोन्मादवशादशेषदशया ग्रस्तौ प्रमत्तौ सदा गायन्तौ च कदा हरेर्गुणवरम् भावाभिभूतौ मुदा वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ हे राधे व्रजदेविके च ललिते हे नन्दसूनो कुता श्रीगोवर्धनकल्पपादपतले कालिन्दीवने कुता घोषन्ताविति सर्वतो व्रजपुरे खेदैर्महाविह्वलौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ हरे
हरि बोल।
कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hari
Jaya
Bol, Deepa Mataji.
Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Gurudeva, 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 Jaya Gurudeva, Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari 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 Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Deepa Mataji. Hari Bol.
Exceeding my time limit. Hare Krishna. Sorry, Prasannatma Prabhuji, for making you wait. Hare Krishna.
No, Mataji. We are just hearing the kirtan.
Hari Bol. So we'll welcome His Grace Prasannatma Balram Prabhu. Hari Bol Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Then was pronounced to you.
Yeah, over to you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So thank you for that. Hare Krishna to all the devotees. Then was pronounced to all of you. I hope you're able to hear me. My voice is okay. Audio, video.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Thank you. So wonderful Monday morning. So today we'll look at shlokas, 6 shlokas we'll do from the second canto, the last chapter, that is the 10th chapter. So we'll be looking at shlokas from 25 to 30. So it's 6 of them in all. So before we can get started now, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Ashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pungum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. I'll try to share the screen. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you. So, all right. So, this is a verse that we will look at. Gathim jigisatha padhav ruruhate abhikamikam padbhyam yagnasvayam havyam karmabhi kriyate nirbhihi. Do it once more. Gathim jigisatha padhav ruruhate abhikamikam padbhyam yagnasvayam havyam karmabhi kriyate nirbhihi. So, anybody would like to? Yeah, I see a lot of raised hands. Anusya Mataji, you can read the verse.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Then this pronounced.
Gatim jigitsata padau turuhate abhikamikam padbhyam yajna swayam havyam karmabhi kriyate nribhihi.
Thank you so much, Mataji. And then we'll try to look at the meaning, the translation. So, anybody else would like to read the translation?
May I, Prabhu? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, translation में Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thereupon, because of his desiring to control movement, his legs became manifested, and from the legs, the controlling deity named Vishnu was generated. By his personal supervision of this act, all varieties of human beings are busily engaged in dutiful occupational sacrifice. Purport also, Prabhu?
No, Mataji, this should do. Thank you so much.
Hare
So
Krishna.
just move on to Hare Krishna. We'll move on to the next verse number 26. So, anyone else would like to do verse 26? Shanti Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can I recite?
Yeah, go ahead. Who's this? Anita Mataji. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Nirabidyata Shishnau Vaye Prajanandamritaartinaha Upasta Asit Kamanam Priyam Tat Ubhayashrayam.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So
Should
the
I read
meaning,
translation or?
I thought we'll ask someone else to do it.
Yes,
Just so
Prabhuji.
that everybody gets a chance. That's all.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji, go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Ki Jai. Therefore, thereupon the sexual pleasure begetting offspring and tasting heavenly nectar, the Lord developed the genitals, and thus there is a genital organ and its controlling deity, the Prajapati. The object of sexual pleasure and the controlling deity are under the control of the genitals of the Lord. Shall I continue,
Right.
Prabhuji?
No,
Purport?
Mataji.
Okay,
No,
Hari.
this should be okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hari.
Hare Krishna. And then the next verse that is up now, it's 3
Hare
shlokas.
Krishna, Prabhuji. I'll do it.
Yeah, go ahead, Mata.
उत्सीश्रुक्षोर्धातुमलं निरभित्यता वैगुदं ततः पायुस्ततो मित्र उत्सर्गा उभयाश्रयः. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. And the translation, who would like to read this?
Shanti Mataji, you have raised your hand. Okay, she's not there, Prabhu. Someone else?
Shruti Mata or yeah, one of you can.
Yeah, Mataji.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Thereafter, when he desired to evacuate the refuse of eatables, the evacuating holes, anus, and the sensory organ thereof developed along with the controlling deity Mitra. The sensory organ and the evacuating substance are both under the shelter of the controlling deity. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So thank you, Mataji. Okay, so this one more we will do. So if somebody can read this.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, please go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Asis Asisrabsho Pura Nabhidwaram Apanataha Tatrapanasthato Mrityu Prataktvam Ubhayashrayam. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. The translation, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. May I?
Hey, please go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Translation by A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thereafter, when he desired to move from one body to another, the navel and the air of departure and death were combinedly created. The navel is the shelter of both, namely death and the separating force. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much. 28. Okay, I think these are all very similar shlokas. So let's go ahead and then read 29 and 30 also. I see some raised hands. Sharmila Mata, Shobha Mata. One of you can read this.
Prabhuji, can I read?
Yes. Go ahead. Dandavat Pranam.
Adisor annathananam asha kuksi an antra nadyaha samudrashacha tayos tushti pushti tat ashraye. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji, Hari Bol.
Thank you so much. So the translation.
I'll read Prabhuji.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. When there was a desire to have food and drink, the abdomen and the intestines and also the arteries became manifested. The rivers and seas are the source of their sustenance and metabolism. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. And then the last shloka. So who would like to read this? I'm not able to see the names, but maybe Meenakshi
Mataji.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Nididhyasoratma mayam hridayam niravidyata tato manaschandra iti sankalpah kama evacha.
And the translation, please.
Shall I, Prabhuji?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat.
Translation by Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When there was a desire to think about the activities of his own energy, then the heart, the seat of the mind, the moon, the determination, and all desire became manifested. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. So thank you, devotees, for taking time and effort to read the verses as well as the meanings. So that was so nice of each one of you to volunteer and then do it. And now we'll just try to see what Prabhupada is trying to say and then how we have to understand these shlokas. So before we get started, Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svadantikam Andeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devan Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschayata Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Khanta Radha Khanta Namostute Takanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So before we start seeking the blessings and the mercy of all the devotees who are here, kindly bless me so that the right words come in the right moment, in the right spirit. And I'm doing this as a service for my Guru Maharaj, for the Guru Parampara, and for the pleasure of the Lordships. And of course, for my own understanding and improvement. So now we saw all these shlokas and then these verses and then this particular, this thing, of course, the title of this particular chapter is Bhagavatam is the answer to all the questions. So whatever question one is supposed to be having with respect to anything, Bhagavatam is the source or it is the answer for all the questions. So that's how vast and that's how in-depth this particular literature or text is. And by the mercy of the Guru Parampara, we are able to sit and then dwell on it. But then the instructions that is given is that we'll have to read or hear the Bhagavatam every day. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So, in fact, ICF has given all of us a wonderful opportunity to talk and then hear about the Bhagavatam every day. So that's one wonderful thing that has happened in our lives, or it is the most wonderful thing that has happened in our lives, which is the opportunity to read and to hear. So now, when we look at these verses, so what is prominent here? What comes to our mind? Anybody wants to try? I mean, you've been hearing these verses we heard today, and then the previous days also we've been hearing similar verses. So just quickly, anybody wants to try? What comes to your mind? What is it that we are actually looking at?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
That's the Supreme Lord is the source of all everything.
Yes.
So without him, nothing is possible.
Yes. Bingo, Mataji. That's right. Sorry, you wanted to add something?
Yeah. So even the relationship between us and the Lord by through scriptures and all only we can know. Not with the material thing, only the spiritual thing, and we can become near to Lord by devotional service.
Very nice. So thank you so much, Mataji. So actually you made my job so easy. So you brought out the essence of what is being spoken or what is being addressed, and which all the speakers have been speaking on. So I'm just trying to understand these verses in the context that it is to be understood, and that is what we will try to do here. So I'll try to touch on all the purports that we are seeing and so on and so forth. So I just try to share something that is there. Just give me a minute. Yeah. I hope you are able to see my screen. So I just made a small representation. Sorry, 1 minute. Okay. So now when we look at these points, I'll just look at, I'm so sorry. I just try to look at all these verses one after another. See the verse number 25, there is this desire for movement was there. And then desire for controlling the movement. So who had this desire for controlling the movement? As per the verse. Was it us or was it the Lord?
Vishnu was generating.
Lord himself.
Lord himself. So the whole premise is that the Lord desired to have movement, and hence the legs came about. So that is how the creation is happening. So this is, we are just taking off from what is the discussion that is going on. So the moment the Lord desired to have movement, then the legs manifested. And then that is, of course, we all know we have two legs. And then these legs are for what? For movement. Now, if you look at the purport, Prabhupada is actually explaining how he extends the legs or the aspect of having two legs to mobility. What does that mean? He says, yes, we have this propensity to move around, and to fulfill that propensity, the Lord is providing us the legs. And it is not, and then of course there are extensions of the leg, like you have the bicycle, the horses or the carriages or the cart, and then you have the automobiles, then you have the airplanes, the rockets and whatnot, everything. All this is catering to the propensity of movement, or how we as living entities have this desire to move, and then the Lord is fulfilling, or he is giving us an facility or an opportunity to fulfill that particular desire of movement. Okay, so that is how this particular verse Prabhupada so wonderfully is bringing out aspect of how the moment the Lord desires, how the creation is happening, just by desire of the Lord. The Lord desired, and then the creation came about. Now this we are seeing in granularity, how he desired, and then how the various things came about. That's all. So in one way, it is very simple from that perspective. And even if we are not able to understand certain concepts, never mind, because we will try to see what is the overall reason for the creation, and how we should see it, and then how to take it forward. So the first aspect was with respect to the movement, and then Prabhupada said how even if you take the current day man, everybody is in the business of moving from one place to another, and this one place to another, this movement is happening. Why is this happening? One is we desired, but then we have desired not just the movement, we have desired something more, and that is why the movement is happening. Movement is an activity which fulfills something else. So what is it that we are wanting to fulfill by way of these movements? We want to fulfill our senses, right? So if you see, whichever way you like, we are driving down to office to work. So we go to office, then we are working there, and then we are earning the livelihood, and then we are coming back. So there is this movement which is connecting to earning of the livelihood. Then there is movement, which is what, and what is that earning of livelihood? Where does that relate to? It relates to gratifying our senses, means taking care of whatever I desire. All of that, and I know if I earn well, then I'll be able to desire, take care of many of my wants and requirements and needs and etc. etc. So now this is not very difficult for us to correlate. So now likewise, because the previous verse we saw, okay, I'll not go there. Then the next aspect in the next verse number 26, the Lord actually desires about how the tasting of the heavenly nectar, and then the begetting of children, and then that whole process, how it has to go. And then that brought about the aspect of sexual pleasure, which is again a sense gratificatory pleasure. So now for that, again, the Lord just thought about it, and then the organs that are responsible for these came about. Then see, now there is another aspect that we'll have to understand. Now we are just seeing that each and everything, the creation is happening in three phases or in three stages. What are these stages? The first stage is that there is a controlling entity that is getting created, and then there are the controlled entities, and then the material body itself or that object itself which is being created. So now, for example, the two legs are the objects that are getting created. So we are it is being termed as Adi Bhautik kind of a creation, and then these two legs are actually affecting the self or the soul by giving it the control of movement. That's what I've indicated here. And so this is adhyatmic because it is pertaining to oneself. Okay. And then finally, the Adi Dhaivik component of the expansion, which is the controlling entity. So you have an Adhipati for that. And then in the case of the leg, it is Vishnu. So likewise, in the next verse, we have the Prajapati, who is the controlling entity for the aspect of begetting children and so on and so forth. And then the aspect of pleasure of the sense or the self. So like this, there is a material body or a part of a body which is getting created, which is the genitals in this case. And then you have the object or the pleasure itself, which is experienced by the self, which is adhyatmic component. And then the third one is the controlling entity, who's the Prajapati. Now you see this pattern repeating everywhere. So, sorry. So which is the next one? The next verse is talking about the desire to evacuate the refuse of eatables. So the Lord knows that, okay, you will eat. So then there is going to be a need to refuse it, the ones which are not digested. So the desired, he desired a process of evacuation, and that is how the evacuating bowl and then all of that got formed. And then that is actually, it is having an impact on the self or the soul, the individual. Every individual is having that. And then the controlling deity for that is a demigod by the name of Mitra. So now, this way, the three components are getting created as and when the Lord is desiring. Key takeaway is that Lord desired or wished for something, and then those things came about. How it came about is being explained in granularity. That's all. So now, just in the next verse again, it talks about he desired to move from one body to another. So when that desire came for the Lord, then that was brought about by the navel and then the air of departure. Is that there are these five types of air. One of the air is connected to the departure. That means the departure of the soul. I mean, it's being carried away. The subtle body carries the soul to the next soul. So we have seen next body. We've seen all of that. And then the navel is the linker. So all of us, we know that how the link from one body to the next, or for any offspring to be born, it is the navel. So that is the object, and then that is also the material body that we are talking about. And then there is a controlling deity. In this case, in this particular verse, that is not mentioned. But then very clearly we can understand that there is a controlling deity for that particular aspect also. Likewise, the Lord desired for food and drink because he knew that living entities in the body will get hungry or they will want to eat. They'll have some cravings for food and drink. So then he went about creating the abdomen, the intestine, and so on and so forth. And then that is being described as the controlling deity for that is the rivers and seas. And then there was also this desire to think about the various activities. The aspect of thinking itself, the Lord thought of the aspect of thinking, and then what came about? The mind came about. Now, what is the sitting place of the mind? It is the heart. So the heart got created, and then the mind came in, and then the controlling deity for that is moon. I know, I mean, sometimes it might be a little confusing, but I'm just drawing your attention to the pattern that is there, and that's all. Even if some things we don't get it completely, it's all right. Because if you look at the previous verses also, it had the same pattern. Now I'm just showing it on your screens, just for us to understand. Right from verse 17 onwards up to verse 24, which are the previous verses which you have seen, there are these three components. And what are these three components? Adibhutik, and then Adhyatmik and Adidhaivik. I'm just going in the reverse order. So what all got created? We know how the eyes became manifested. And then we know that who's a controlling deity for the eyes? It is the sun god. And then there is this aspect of the ears got manifested because the Lord desired, or the great sages desired to hear. And then there is a desire to perceive physical characteristic, matter, softness, temperature, weight, etc. For that, then the skin and the skin pores got created. And then who's the Adidhaivik component are the trees. And then the desire to perform work, because of that, the hands came about. And then the hands and then the strength, these are all the things that are experienced by the individual. You have strength in your hands, right? You can experience that. So the Adhyatmic component came about. And then the controlling deity is Indra. So like that we have Varuna, Agni, Vayu, then the sun god, the trees, then Indra. And in the earlier verse also we saw some more. What are they? Prajapati, Vishnu, then Mitra, then moon, then the rivers, the seas, and so on and so forth. So all of them. So we can see how the creation the Lord is doing in three phases, like in three different phases: Adhyatmic, Adidhaivik, and Adibhautik. So now all the three are coming from the Lord only. In fact, the Adhyatmic component, that is ourselves, the soul, that is also from the Lord. So like how correctly Mataji said, the Lord is the source of everything that is created. The gross body, the subtle body, up to intelligence, that is the gross body of the Panchabhutas, subtle bodies are the mind, intelligence, and then the ego. So all of this is coming from the Lord. And then we have the soul. We have seen that. Now, where is the soul coming from? The soul is also part and parcel of the Lord. So in essence, this is actually giving us a description of how everything is coming from the Lord and how we got, the most important thing is how we got all these facilities for ourselves. What are these facilities? We have the hands, we have the legs, we have the eyes, we have the nose, we have the ears, and we have the skin. So there are various components of the body which we have, through which we gather knowledge, we do action. So that kind of brings us to, this is kind of a revision, so maybe this was covered earlier, but I'm just trying to cover this so that there is this logical sequence to it. So now all of this is coming from the Lord, and that is what our acharyas have put across as Sankhya philosophy, and this is what you see there. What are all the things that are there in the Sankhya philosophy, how the creation is happening? So it starts with Pradhana, which is the three subtle elements. Now this, I think you should be able to answer. What are the three types of material nature that you are aware of? Anybody wants to answer? It's not here. Oh, maybe it is there.
The modes, Prabhuji?
Yeah, the three modes. Yes. So the three modes, when they are not manifested, it is called Pradhana. Just remember, just hear it, that's all. So if you don't understand also, it's all right. But when they manifest, then they manifest as Sattva, Rajo, and then Tamo, the three gunas: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So one is the manifest stage, the other one is the unmanifest stage. The unmanifest stage is called as pradhana. So like this, that becomes one component of creation. Out of the 24 components, or out of the 24 elements, that is categorized as one component. And then you have the aspect of false ego. I think these are all the subtle coverings: mind, intelligence, and false ego, which you have heard before also. So that becomes the three elements in the subtle aspect, or in the subtle category. Then the other important thing it becomes a little more gross as we go on. So which are part of this 24 elements which have got created by the Lord is the 5 gross elements. What are they? You know that. Do you want to read that out? Earth, air, fire, water. Sorry, ether, air, fire, water, earth. Or if you are going in one order, it is earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So this is the 5 we can identify and relate easily. Then there is this 5 sense objects that got created. What are they? Sound, touch, sight, taste, and smell. So this also we know. And then 5 knowledge acquiring senses came about. What are they? Ear. So if there is sound, then we need to perceive the sound. So the Lord gave us ears. So just let us read it like that. If there is this need to perceive, touch, and then feel, then the skin is given to us so that we can use the medium of skin to touch and then feel and understand. And thereby it gives us knowledge, or it gives us some pleasure, or there is some sense gratification happening. So either way. So because child, every time it'll touch and then it'll want to see. Sometimes it'll go about touching a dangerous thing because it doesn't know fully. Anyway, that is the thing. Then the eyes. So now the creation is there, but then if one is not able to see, then it is of no use. So the aspect of eyes came about, and this aspect of seeing through the eyes is called as sight. Likewise, the tongue, how it is related to taste, and the nose, how it is related to smell. So now these are all the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, we are calling it in the Sankhya philosophy. These categories are there just for us to help us understand a little bit more on how, why it is there, and then what is its function, and then where is it coming from. That's all. Then you also have the last category, which is the 5 working senses. You would have heard these things, 5 gross elements, 5 sense objects, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, then 5 working senses. So what are they? Jnana in Sanskrit, if you want to know, working senses is called as Jnanendriyas. Then sense objects or knowledge acquiring senses are called as, the 5 working senses are called as Karmendriyas. 5 knowledge acquiring senses are called as Jnanendriyas. Then the Tanmatras, which is the sense objects, and then the Adibhutas, or the ether, air, water, fire, that one. So like this, there are classifications. It might be a little confusing. It is confusing because even I myself got confused a little bit, even though I have read this before. So like this, what are the 5 working senses? Voice, there is the speech, and then you have legs, then the arms, then the reproductive organs, the evacuating organs. Now, actually, in our verses today, we are seeing about the evacuating organs, about the reproductive organs, about the legs, about the voice, about the ears. No, sorry, not the ear, about the tongue, the skin. So these are some of the things that we saw. So likewise, comprehensively, we are seeing how everything is being created by the Lord. That's all. There is nothing more to it. So is there anything, anybody has any comment or question on this? Because with this, we completed one aspect of what we need to understand, which is how creation happened and how the Lord did the creation. Now, you would have heard people saying, Lord doesn't have to do overwork. He doesn't have to toil himself and then make this creation. He just thought about it and then the creation came. You would have heard this before also. But in his mind, he just thought. With his glance, he agitated the Mahatattva. So like that, he doesn't have to lift a finger also. Like he doesn't have to do too much. Just by thinking, then all this happened. So this is the main takeaway for us. So now I'm asking again, is there anything anybody wants to say or any comment or question that you have with respect to what we saw up till now?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, the previous slide you were mentioning about this Pradhan, right, which is the unmanifested, which is the 3 modes. Can you just explain about that? I didn't get this one properly, this paragraph. The three subtle elements constitute subtle body. So, yeah.
See, there
And
are
is it
24.
from the...
No, we are 24 elements are there, which is how the categorization has happened in Sankhya Yoga for the whole of creation, how the creation came about. In that, the first component is called as Pradhana. What is Pradhana? It is the unmanifested form of the three modes of material nature. I can't use the word unmanifested form because form means manifested, which we can perceive or we can feel. So we can feel goodness, passion, ignorance. But Pradhana is something which is before this manifestation happened. So it is called as unmanifest because we know we all are in the manifested stage in this body. Likewise, everything is manifested in the material world. But before it got manifested, everything was in the unmanifested stage in Mahavishnu. We know this. For that, what is that? That one night of Brahma, everything goes in and then again come out. Then again the creation happens like that, So manifest and unmanifest. The whole creation is happening in cycles. So Pradhana is referring to the unmanifest stage of the modes of material nature alone. So I hope that's all. What it is, how it is, we may not know it. Even I don't know. But then it is denoted by this word Pradhana. When we say Pradhana, it is unmanifested form of the three modes of material nature. And that is treated as one element. That's all. Then the other three, and then the next are the three subtle ones, which is false ego, intelligence, mind. So it becomes 4. Then from 4, then you have below the 20. So 20 plus 4 is the 24. So that count is important. So that is why I'm just putting this up so that you can see it. You can take this screenshot. I didn't make this. I took it from our ISKCON site only. So you can take a screenshot so you'll know this as a reference. That's all. So
thank you. I just took the picture of this. This was very helpful. So what I understood is all these 24 elements are there. And when Brahma goes to sleep, these will be inactivated. They will go to unmanifested state.
Yes,
so,
that we are seeing in other verses. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So when the other day, when Brahma is awake, then again it is from stage 1.
Creations happens, Yes. See, you would have heard.
And all these controlling deities will pray to the Lord for them to get activated. Is it like
No, in fact, the controlling deities also came about. This we are talking in the Bhagavatam, the earlier slokas that we saw, how the controlling deities came about. That is also there. How Mitra came about, how the sun god came about. So that it is actually a living entity who's taken that place. But then that position got created, and then how Indra came about. Like that. Now. These are all, we have so many demigods, right? So how many?
330 million.
Yeah, 32 crore, whatever. So many demigods are there. So we are just having a description of some of them here. Okay.
So, so these controlling deities are also get unmanifested. So that's what, right, Prabhuji?
Yes, that position goes away, no? So when the position goes away, but then the soul is there, like how in Adhyatmika, also we as soul, living entity, we are there. But then we are in the unmanifest stage inside. So likewise, even the Adi Dhaivik, when their term is over, they will be in unmanifested stage. And Adi Bhautik is the material aspect, which is also in unmanifested stage. It is like building for us to understand it in a gross way. It is like the building. There is a building that has come about and then it got demolished. How did the building come about? From the raw material. So raw material is the unmanifest stage. You can take it like. And then when it gets manifested, it is manifesting as a building or it is manifesting as living entities, so on and so forth. And just to crudely compare it,
Okay, thank you.
And then when the building is demolished, it again goes back to earth. Like the Twin Tower, it was demolished, then everything went back to earth, right? Everything got it settled.
So is it that Brahmaji, again, he makes prayers when he wants to create? So that process is getting repeated every day for Brahma?
Yeah, the Lord prays and then does it, but then the knowledge is given to him for his lifetime, which is 100 years. So every day morning, he doesn't have to get the knowledge. It's not like he has forgotten. So it manifests and unmanifests. The Lord, Brahma sleeps, that's all. And then again, when he wakes up, then he goes about his duties. But yes, in that one lifetime, the first time, the Lord instructs him.
Okay.
It's like when we go to office, we've been instructed once, and then during the tenure, we don't have to be instructed every day. Like, so like.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So the controlling deities, but they will be changing, right?
They can change, Mataji. They can change. They will change. Manvantras, so many changes happen. The entities, they have their own terms fixed and then they'll keep changing.
Fine. Okay. Thank you.
So this is a very high level overview that I'm just giving so that we understand this. And even if we then don't get some component, it is all right. The very fact that we are all created by the Lord is the main takeaway. That's all. And this is done by the wishing of the Lord. That's all. He just wished for it and then it happened. And this is where I was saying the Lord divides into three. What are those three? Adhyatmic, Adidevik, and Adibhautik. And this Lord dividing into three, you have already done that. It is in 2.10.14. So the potency of the Lord divides into three. That's another takeaway that I just wanted to highlight. I hope that's clear. Now we'll move on to the next. Now we have got created and then we have these, what do you call, various, okay, don't read the slide. Okay, we have these various facilities which are given to us by the Lord. Now there are two ways of using it. Okay, so one is the misuse that is happening and then the actual use that we need to have, put it to. So this is, I thought I'll just put this across in this way so that we can understand. So now, for example, we have the mouth or which is there, which is the mouth including the palate and then the tongue. Now, what is the misuse that we are doing? We are using it to for sense gratification, the mouth and all that. We are using it for jalpa. We are using it for cursing somebody. We are not nice with our words. So all this is misuse. Now you can see the link, right?
We eat in non-prasadam.
Sorry?
We eat non-prasadam. It is not offered to Krishna.
Yeah, we use non-prasadam. Yes, this is not an exhaustive list. I wanted you people to think and then come out various ways in which we misuse a particular facility that is given to us. So now you're getting it. So, but then the use is also there. That was also there in the Shastras. What is the use? So we know that, like tasting prasadam, vibrating the holy name of the Lord, chanting the Lord's name, which is a function of the mouth, the speech, the tongue, all of that together. I've just put that across as use and then misuse. So now let us identify misuse and use for each of these things. So for the nostrils or the nose, a misuse could be doing pranayama for elongating one's life. Just for that. And why we want to elongate the life? So that we are able to do more sense gratification. But then pranayama is actually for controlling the mind, the anger, and then the mind. So then there are two ways in which you can do pranayama. So the usage of the object given to us is the same, but then what we use it for is very important. So that is why the use and the misuse comes about. The eyes, again, I don't have to elaborate much. Sense gratification. So seeing all the things that one is not supposed to see, which is sense gratification, enjoyment, and so on and so forth. But then the actual use, why the eyes were given to us, is for us to see the form of the Lord, and then to see the devotees, so to see the various activities that the devotees are doing for the Lord, to see the pastimes, and so on and so forth. But then we're not using it for that. The ears also. We are using our ears to hear material affairs, then to hear self-praise. So these are all misuse, whereas actually it should be there to hear the glories of the Lord, Kavanam, Kirtanam, and then hearing the scriptures, and so on and so forth. So like that, the skin also, that is there for the sense pleasures, but then actually that is not how it should be. So the next one, which is the hands, the Lord has given us two hands, then we use it to kill others, to harm others, and then do actions which are not, which actually produces a lot of negative effect on another person. So which is, the Adi Bhautika Kleshas, so where we put another person into inconvenience by our actions using the hand. So that is not what it should be used for. It should be used for performing arati, or pulling the ratha. That's another thing that came to my mind. So like that, we'll have to use our hands in a proper way in serving the Lord. And then the legs also. So the legs is used for rat race, jump into the car, jump into an aeroplane, go here and there, or sense gratification. Actually, the legs are to be used for walking to the temple, doing parikrama, and then going to the dham or going to a devotee's house, so on and so forth. There is a shloka, so maybe somebody knows, which talks about this Ambarish Maharaj shloka. Anybody knows that, or at least one or two lines of that verse? Which is telling how Ambarish Maharaj perfected himself. by using all the facilities that was given to him, which is pertaining to his body. And then he put it into the use of the Lord. Tavai mana Krishna padhara vindayor. Vaikunta vachamsi vaikunta gunarnu varnane. So like that, if you read that particular translation, it says how Ambarish Maharaj used his legs to walk to the temple, used his hands for serving the Lord, for the devotee, and then he used his mouth for only speaking about the Lord, the glories of the Lord. His ears were used for hearing the glories of the Lord. So like that. So he perfected his life by, we know Ambarish Maharaj is such a great devotee, right? And then he was such a great devotee that even Durvas Muni could not do anything for him. He was not able to curse him. Then the Lord came for his protection. So we know that story. So now Ambarish Maharaj, how was he doing his devotional service? That is given in a particular shloka, which I just narrated the two words. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor, Vaikunta vachamsi gunarnu varnane. So he's using his all his facilities for glorifying the Lord, for serving the Lord, and so on and so forth. So this is the sum and essence of what, how we should lead our life, or how we should take things forward and not end up misusing it. So like you have this, no, I was just trying to search for the shloka. I couldn't get it, but I'm sure you'll be able to get that. So now let us take a material example. So what is a material example? Let's say we have a facility that we are given by the owner of a big industry. Let's say you're told to play a certain role there, and then he's given you some facilities. What are those facilities? It could be a car, it could be a house, and so on and so forth. Now, why are all these facilities given? These facilities, and then maybe a driver, maybe a cook, so on and so forth. Now, why are these facilities given? So that you will be able to do your duty in the way that is expected, and then thereby he gets a profit out of it. Now, he knows that you will use certain of the facilities for your own use. Like the car, if it's given, you will know, he knows that you will use it for your own personal things, like to go on a picnic or to take your family out and all that. So in a strict sense, it is a no. He is magnanimous enough to understand, you do my work, I will allow you to use these facilities for your own self also. It is all right. So now, if an ordinary owner of this thing in the material world can be so magnanimous, God is also magnanimous, right? I mean, he should be more magnanimous than all this. So he has given us certain facilities, but then he knows that we'll have to use it for some sense gratificatory process. So there is some concession that is given. But then we are only looking at that concession and nothing more, then it becomes a wrong commitment, or a wrong engagement is happening. Like how, take the same example. We only use the facilities given for our own self. Use the car for this thing, which means that you end up not doing any of the work that is expected from him. But then you use all the facilities that is given to us for our own personal use, like sense gratification. Every day going out on long drive and etc. I'm just giving an example. Then what happens? It's not a good situation. So sooner or later, he will come to know, and then we are given a pink slip or whatever. So you are booted out of that particular position because you are not fit. So the same way, the Lord has also given us certain facilities with the expectation that it will be used for serving the Lord. Thereby, we are able to transcend the material world and then come over. But then we don't seem to do that. The Lord is still okay with that. So he has given some concessions. What are these concessions? The concessions are there whereby, you're hungry, then you need to eat, but then eat prasadam. So there are some concessions given. And then, but then if you do it indiscriminately, and then you cause harm to another living entity, which angers the Lord so much, and then enjoy your senses, then we'll have to face the consequence for that. So like this, there is this rewards and punishments and all of that, and that's how the karma came about. So this is how, the Lord didn't want us to do certain things, but he has given certain facilities, but then we have misused it, and thereby we sometimes end up in a not very good situation. So that is the point that we'll have to be aware of. And then we'll also have to be aware of how these, the activities or the things that are given to us are not misused. So we should know what is used and what is misused. So which we know mostly. It's not that we didn't know. It is just that we didn't know that we have these hands which are given by the Lord, and then I have to use it in a service. Okay, we knew, but then while it is being explained in granularity here, then it kind of makes us sit back and then think, oh yes, so what am I doing? Am I using it only for my own senses, or I'm also using it for the Lord? So like this, how we are able to, and then for that the guideline is given in the scriptures. So it says like, for example, oh, you want a certain type of sense gratification, okay, get married. But then support them, raise children, so so on and so forth. Raising children is a Herculean thing; nobody will want it. But then the what do you call the incentive given is so attractive that people don't mind getting into the problem of child rearing and all that. Like so like this, it is all put in such a way that you do it. But then the Lord is still saying, okay, you can still do it, but then at least raise Krishna conscious children. Not at least. I mean, that's the best that you have to do. That's the least that you have to do. Sorry. So this way, the Lord has given us concession. Thereby, your whole action of gratifying your senses also becomes spiritual, because you're using the results of it for Krishna consciousness. That is, by raising Krishna conscious children, the Lord becomes happy because you're bringing more souls towards Him. And then by preaching, by using the power of our hearing and speaking, and then the legs, and then moving around, and then doing some preaching, book selling, etc., that pleases the Lord. Thereby, we are actually putting good use of the facilities that He has given us, and thereby, we kind of get we get spiritual credits for that, and that way, then our progress towards the Lord begins, and then we will realize that. And then it is reciprocatory, like it is paraspara. So when we do something for the Lord also reciprocates. So when we see the reciprocation, then our faith in the Lord becomes more firm. So we will want to do a little bit more than what we were doing previously, and so on and so forth. So one step at a time, but then gradually progressing towards the Lord. Thereby, we'll suddenly realize that we have moved far, far away from material things. And this is all something that all of us can have experienced it. And how material things become paler and paler. Like they say, the acharyas say, how do I know that I'm making progress? I'm chanting, I'm doing all this, but I don't know how I'm progressing. So one test is that our attraction to material things become less. Not that we don't do material things, or we've given it up fully, but then the attraction becomes lesser and lesser. We're not so attracted like how it was before. We're not so excited like how it was before. And then slowly that journey is happening. And this is the point that we will have to understand. And here in these verses, Vidura asking the questions and so on and so forth, they are trying to bring out the aspect of how everything is for the Lord. When everything is for the Lord, then it has to be used in the service of the Lord. That's all. Like how you know very well that in a material world, when everything is like you're a government servant and some facility is given to you, then you know that you will have to give back. You will have to work for the government, and that's when then it becomes a good situation. Otherwise, it's a nonsense situation. So likewise, when we have got it from the Lord, then even though we might use it for our own needs, then we'll have to use it for Krishna, for understanding Him, for going towards Him, for praising Him, for getting more people into the fold. So the whole aspect of Krishna consciousness will open up for us in a new light. And that is what is said in Bhagavatam elsewhere also, where very clearly, what's that? There is this verse which talks about Atapumbe Dvijashreshta Varnashrama Vivagasa Swanushtitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. Haritoshanam is the main aim of everybody. And for that, whatever is the facility that has been given to you, in whatever varna you are belonging to, in whatever ashrama you are belonging to, you just do your duty, and then thereby you will be able to please the Lord. Swanushtitasya dharmasya, being wherever you are situated, do your dharma, and then that way the Lord becomes pleased. So that way we move closer to the Lord. So whichever way we look at it, it is all pointing out to the same thing of what is our duty, and then what is misuse of the duty, and then what is actual duty, and of course what is the benefit that we'll get. That is Sambandha, Avidaya and Prayojana also. So we develop a relationship with the Lord. We didn't know. So now everything that I own is coming from the Lord. So that is the main takeaway. That is the secret. In fact, that is what is being discussed here. I'll just try to cover that. What is the secret that is coming out here? I'll just try to share that 1 minute. And then with that, I think we can conclude today's discussion. Just a second. Yeah. So this particular secret that Prabhupada is bringing out in these verses are like this. First, we know that everything pleasurable is tinged with dukkha. So there is some enjoyment that is given, but then you cannot do too much of it. There is a check and balance that is there. So now we like sweets, okay, you can indulge, but then to a certain extent only, because you always have this worry, oh, I will get I'll fall sick or I'll get sugar or something like that. So this is not very hard to understand. So you overindulge, then we are there. So even in that pleasure, there is this anxiety, fear, oh, I might get that. So even though you're tasting some pleasure, then there is that. And this is, you can extend it to any pleasurable thing. So the conclusion is, don't try to find happiness by sense gratificatory process. So that is foolishness. So then at every step, one should try to execute the sacrifices towards the Lord, towards the path. I mean, that's the path for world peace. If we want to have world peace, then we will have to execute sacrifices for the Lord. And that is the way of attaining world peace. That's what Prabhupada says, even in Bhagavad Gita also, in 45 and 46 verses of the 18th chapter, the same thing is being told. And then why is this material creation made? We have to understand that. Material creation is for reviving the dormant God consciousness of individual souls. Period. That's it. Nothing more. So, okay, in the process, there might be some enjoyment. We'll have to view it like that, not the other way around. Because mostly in the outside world, people carry this view that creation is for my own enjoyment. God created all this. Why? And he put us there so that we can stay here and enjoy. That is the most foolish, ignorant statement to make and to understand or to believe in. It is not there for us to do. It is like a child thinking that my father has put me in this wonderful school with so much of facility and all that, so that I can be here forever. No, Father has put you there so that you come out of that school. That's the reason why the Father has put you in that school, even though it's the best school, it's got so many opportunities and facilities and all that. The expectation is that, okay, I'm putting you here, but then you come out in the due course of time. You finish your studies and then you come out. You reform yourself, you change yourself, you come out as a educated man. So that's the idea, right? So like that, the Lord has put us into this material world, and then he has given us some facilities, but then we cannot get into this wrong thinking that, oh, he's put me here, so let me stay here. No, he is put there with the intention to come out, like how a father has put a child into a school. Okay, and then so that's all. There is nothing else. This material creation is for reviving our God consciousness. We can go back, we can come out of this material world by reviving our dormant God consciousness, and thereby we'll be able to move towards the Lord. Then there is no harm in having different propensities. This is another truth that is coming out here. So what are these propensities? Each one will have their own propensities. I might like something else and so on and so forth. Because every human, as we are right now, we have some amount of proportionate independence that is given to us. Chalk out a certain plan for oneself. Okay, I will move forward in this way, so on and so forth. That much of independence is given to us. And we might have some propensities. That means like we have certain type of liking. Each one is different from another. Even if we are born of the same mother, like even siblings, they have different preferences and choices. So we know how varied that is. That is okay. That is fine. There is no harm in that. That is to plan to live our current life. We have our own small independence to chalk out. But we should not miss the point that one is not absolutely independent. We should never forget that at any point. We can still go ahead and then make plans. Then we should always know that I am not completely independent. There is nothing like absolute independence. There's always a rider. There's always a latch on, like, what do you call it? A rider. Yeah, there's always a rider, which means that, okay, you have certain independence, but then everything is from the Lord. The Lord is the controller. He is the supreme controller, so on and so forth. So to some extent, you have your independence to exercise certain things, but then beyond that, then it doesn't happen. So by this understanding, our life becomes so much more peaceful. And then we are actually handing over the reins to the Lord and then say, Lord, you please take care of me, and so that I'll be able to come out of this mess that I have found myself in. So that is surrender. So the moment that we understand we are not absolutely independent, that means the aspect of surrender is creeping in. So we know we are not independent, we are dependent on somebody. Whom are we dependent on? So that's the next level of understanding, which is we're dependent on the Lord. for everything, because we've got all the facilities from him, and then we'll have to repay it only by working for him or by glorifying him, so on and so forth. So this way, if we are able to connect in our mind all the dots that are there, then definitely the faith becomes stronger. And then we are using our little bit of intelligence that the Lord has given in serving the Lord, which means in understanding the Lord and talking about him, which pleases the Lord. So we are moving towards Haritoshnam, and thereby the Lord actually, mercy begins to flow, and then the faith becomes stronger. So it's like a spiral, an upward spiral. So with the mercy, then we have understanding. With understanding, then more mercy, and so on and so forth. And then we do more activities, so more mercy, and then it's an upward spiral where we start moving towards the Lord. So that's what I just wanted to cover. It's already 10:30, so I'll stop here. If there are so today actually we saw how the creation has happened by the Lord wishing, which conforms to things that we have heard before, and then how at a granular level some of these creations are happening. We saw that. And then we'll continue to see it in the subsequent verses also. But then, why are these creations in three components: Adhyatmic, Adibhautik, Adidaivik? And then how we as Adhyatmic, we are also part of the creation. How the demigods as Adidaivik are part of the creation, and how the Bhuta or the body is the sum total of all of this. The tongue, nose, everything together is the body. So that is also Adibhautik, which is the body, which is from the Panchabhutas. So like this, we are seeing various components all coming together, and then given us some facilities so that we use these facilities and get out of particular place, period. That's it. So, and then that's the secret that we are talking about. I hope this is all right. If there are any comments or questions, then please go ahead. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Bol.
Thank you, Mataji.
Chintamani Prabhu, you have a question?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the nice class. Prabhuji, I have a question. How much material enjoyment we are entitled for, or we should aspire for? Because I see there are devotees who are very rich. They have everything materially, and still they are devotees.
Yeah.
So if I look at them, I also think of having a lot of material desire, and I can still serve the Lord.
So if I understand your question, you want to know to what extent. So they are given some concession, which is all right, but then you want to know to what extent we can use. That's what you're trying to ask, right?
Use and
to what extent we are allowed sense gratification, which means that to what extent I can use, like an employee asking, to what extent can I use my the facilities given by you for my personal things? So something like that, just to give a reference. So that's a good question, actually. So again, where do we refer to? We will ask the HR, we will ask the personal manager. So can I use this for this? Is it okay? I'm going on a business trip. Can I take my wife along? You ask, you inquire. So you make sure that you know everything fully before. Sometimes they'll say, no, your position does not allow for that. So you cannot do that. Then you just keep quiet. So like this, we will have to ask, we all have to report to our HR, who is the guru, who's the in-between. The HR is the in-between the corporate or the owner, and then us. So like that, we have an in-between, which is the guru parampara. And then the scriptures. So there are, in the HR, there are policies. So like that, you have these scriptures, which is telling us, and then the acharyas have spelled out in various ways. So for us, there are certain guidelines that are given, 25%, 25%, but then we can't take all of it like that. We'll have to see if it is really applicable to me. It will depend on time, place, circumstances. So the best advice for to what extent I can enjoy a certain thing is to refer back to the guru. So the first thing is to have a guru, to align ourselves there. So that then the guru actually gives us the advice, and then he'll say, okay, because you might have seen the guru giving different advice to different people for the same set of problems. Why? Because he is able to see the soul and then the position, to what extent this attachment is there for the individual. Like Prabhupada, to give an example, I mean, this is an example that is generally not quoted because people might misunderstand. But then, he said, like, he allowed something for somebody, and then he said, that's okay, you go ahead. But then he knew that he could bring him back by something else, because he knew that particular propensity was so strong in him that if I tell him to leave that, then he will not come to the movement on, or he will not come to the temple only. He'll stop doing that. So So the guru knows, and then thereby step by step, they will try to wean us off. So it's an answer which is not standard or it's not specific, because it will depend on the individual. It will depend on the particular enjoyment that we are talking about. For somebody, he might say, okay, you don't come to the temple, but then you do these things or something like that. Or somebody, some other type of instruction might come in. Like, Ramanujacharya, I can take that example. Two of his devotees, his disciples, Ramanujacharyas. So same problem, but then they were given different solutions. So for one, he was given a task of going and then learning from another guru. For somebody else, I'm forgetting the names, Dasharati and there's one more. There are two people. So for the other person, he said, you go and do menial service in one household for 6 months. And it looks so different. But then the end goal was the same, because he could identify that one person, the ego had to be beaten down a little bit. For another one, it was not so. So like that. The guru knows. The whole aspect is the guru knows. And then it will vary. The solution will vary. To what extent sense gratification is allowed, it will vary. But then there are some guidelines. Step into this, like a minimum qualifier is there, like the 4 regulative principles and all that. These are given. What are the role of any manager or any worker? There are some basic rules, like you should be cordial to everybody. You cannot create a ruckus. You cannot park a vehicle somewhere where there is some this thing. When you go into the office premises, there is certain. You cannot eat on your table. You have to go to another place. So there's basic rules which are applicable for everybody. So those are the 4 regulative principles. So within that boundary, then it is okay. And then, of course, the more specific ones are based on our position, which the guru will. I gave a slightly long answer, but I hope that kind of clarifies for you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Is that okay, Prabhu? I mean, does it kind of
yes, Prabhuji.
answer?
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking for?
Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. It always helps to understand, to give meanings, and that is what Prabhupada did. Sorry, Mataji, 1 minute. So we take some material references and then try to relate it. We'll be able to understand things better. And then when in material world itself, there is so much of magnanimity, so much of logic and all that. Definitely in the Lord's creation, there is more of it. So we'll have to extrapolate it that way, and then thereby we'll be able to comprehend within ourselves all these things. Yeah, Mataji, you're saying something. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have a doubt. What are tanmatras, Prabhuji?
Oh yeah, the tanmatras are those, what do you call, the senses, like, I'll just try to get that 1 minute. What are the senses that we have? The sense objects, sorry. That means sound, touch, sight, taste, smell.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Pradhana is are the raw materials, no, Prabhuji? Like Pradhana are like the raw materials before creation.
Not all of it. The raw material of the mode of nature. Everything has raw material.
Okay, Prabhuji.
That is Mahatattva. In Mahatattva, Pradhana is a part of it.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
So Hare Krishna Prabhu, we'll end the session here.
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, okay. Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hari Bol.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the wonderful pranam. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Shall I end the session, Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji. Please go ahead. Thank you so much.